there, Ramblers, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and indeed all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming and technology. Hope you're doing well out there, and I know I certainly am because the weather here in the UK is looking rather nice just lately. We've had the sun for a couple of weeks, but what we haven't had is the warmth. But very pleased to report that temperatures are now firmly into double digits, and it's looking like that's going to be the case over the weekend as well, which gives us something to look forward to, doesn't it? And one of the things that I wanted to mention, actually, I have talked about this in a couple of recent episodes, but just wanted to make it crystal clear to people. This goes out on YouTube, on my second channel, which is called Reese, although it's on youtube.com/Reese Rambles, just to be extra confusing. And it also goes out on all of the podcast platforms as well, so Spotify and iTunes and a load of other ones I've never even heard of. And no matter what you are using to watch this or listen to this, if you go down to the description below, you'll see some links. And if you want to watch it or listen to it on a different platform, perhaps as you're driving to work or as you're mowing your lawn on this glorious weekend or doing your dishes or whatever it is that you do out there, just to give people options, And it's interesting how many people seem to gloss over that and not notice, which, is fair enough. So I thought I'd put it out there right at the beginning. Anyway, as mentioned earlier, we do have this fantastic weather coming up, and that gives us something to look forward to over the weekend. And speaking of things to look forward to, that's right, I actually worked this little segue out in advance like the smart boy that I am. The Nintendo Switch 2 now has a launch date as of this week, and I thought I'd just mention this very quickly before we go into our main stories for this week. I like to keep an eye on what Nintendo are up to. I think arguably they are quite an important part of the gaming world, and quite a big player and an important name in the retro world as well. So the Switch 2, there has been one of these Nintendo Direct live stream things that they do. Loads of stuff to go and see. I'm not going to cover all of that because I'm not a Nintendo channel. But new console coming out is always exciting. And that's coming on the 5th of June, which is much sooner than I think anyone was expecting based on the reactions that I've seen. So the new Nintendo Switch is coming on the 5th of June. It has a dedicated chat button, which is kind of the new big addition to the console itself, kind of over and above all the stuff that's already been announced. And there's going to be a Mario Kart bundle, and I love Mario Kart, so that's always a good thing. But perhaps no surprise whatsoever that a new Nintendo console would launch with a new Mario Kart. But so we have the release date, which is the 5th of June, as mentioned, and also some prices being reported here by NintendoLife.com. So, the bare console on its own will be $449.99, or €469.99, or £395.99. So, quite pricey, I will say. And there is a bundle which will be available on day one with Mario Kart World, as mentioned, and obviously that's going to cost you a little bit more. So that's $499.99, €509.99, or £429.99. So essentially the game is going to be around 50 of your finest local currency, which I have heard some people reporting that the games are going to be sort of $80, $90-ish, or £80, £90-ish. So represents a bit of a discount, I guess, and it's a Nintendo console, so you've got to have Mario Kart, haven't you? So, anyway, Nintendo Life are speculating that the initial demand is going to be very high, and that obviously you're going to have to get your pre-orders in. Scalpers are going to be all over this, and the whole thing's probably going to be a complete and utter mess, as these console launches always are. But there you go. That's that. That's kind of the big gaming news for this week. Let's get on and get into my first story. Or was that the first story? I don't know. Of course, that was going to be big news, but I have something perhaps even bigger for you this week, because this is something that I've been following along with for the longest time, as you'll know. Recent weeks and months, I have been reporting on all the latest developments in this particular project, and I'm very pleased to report that the day has finally come. It is now finally upon us, and we can now finally get our hands upon it. And I've been so eager, in fact, to get my hands on this this monumental moment in gaming, but I haven't actually got around to buying it myself yet. But anyway, I thought I'd put the word out there for you, and of course links will be down in the description as always, so you can grab it for yourself. I am of course talking about the release of Croc Legend of the Gobbos, the official remaster from Argonaut Games. That's right. So that classic 90s PC platformer, or at least I remember it as a PC platformer, is finally upon us. So we've got those wonderful upscaled textures and, up-resed graphics and whatnot. Improved controls and all the nice kind of modern niceties that you would expect with a remaster. This is from Argonaut Games, who, of course, Argonaut Games developed and developed the original game. And, all right, there isn't actually any kind of connection between the current iteration of Argonaut and the original iteration, other than apparently the original owners did give their blessing to this project and to the people who are now using their name, which is very nice of them. Anyway, this is Croc. So Croc is a crocodile, and this is a 3D platform game. And unusually for an early 3D platform game, it's actually very good. It's actually very playable, and I can only imagine that the new and improved modernised controls improve that situation even further. So you can buy this game from GOG.com, G-O-G, goodoldgames.com. It's $24.99, and yeah, here it is. It's looking very good. I mean, it's one of those, those remasters where they look how you remember them looking, rather than kind of how they actually looked at the time, and rather than them, the people working on the remaster completely messing it up and screwing around with the graphics when they didn't need to. It just looks how you remember it looking back in the day, doesn't it? It's fun, it's twee, it's it's brightly coloured. It's got all these cool little creatures, all these enemies and things in it. And I actually genuinely think this is a great game, which is why I've been yapping on about this for so long. So, I think I've talked about this at length anyway, but it has been released on the 2nd of April, and you can buy it from GOG.com. So, I'm not going to go into the details of what the remaster includes. It includes all of the stuff that you might expect from a remaster. New graphics, new controls, as mentioned. You can run it on your modern operating system with no problems whatsoever. And it also includes something called the Crocipedia, which is, as you might expect from a modern remaster, a load of historical information about the development of the game. So, development assets, art assets and notes and all of that lovely stuff. Give you a bit of an insight into the development of the game as well. So there it is. Croc is finally upon us once more for the first time since the 90s. Did it ever get any sequels? That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Got the system requirements here. So it requires Windows 10. Unfortunately, it is only available on Windows. But there you go. 1.8 gigahertz i5 with 16 gig of RAM and a 3D graphics card. Oh, it does say compatible with DirectX 12. Okay, so 35 gig of hard drive space. What on earth? Anyway. So there are some really positive five-star reviews. What are these 5-star reviews all round on GOG.com? Looking very good. Like I say, I haven't actually played it myself. Croc was already a great game, and the remaster makes it better. The one thing that stood out to me was the improved controls. Modern controls don't feel out of place and make the gameplay flow as well as it did in 1996. For those who prefer the old style of controls, you can switch them. Thank you, Daiichi Earth, for that review. The newer visuals make the game look fantastic on both older and modern visuals with solid frame rate. Give the game a chance if you're new to the series, or buy it if you're a Croc fan. Hopefully they'll remake Croc 2 as well. Well, that answers that question. Always sleepy 24/7, one of the best ways to experience Croc for newcomers and people who love the original. We've got Winty Keck. I loved to play this game as a child and was so excited when I saw there's going to be a remaster. Not a question that I'd buy it as soon as it released, and I don't regret it. Music and sound effects bring back so many fond memories. When I was a little kid, I didn't finish the game, I just had fun. This time I'm definitely going to complete this masterpiece 100%. Snake Master, very well-made remaster of a 90s classic, oozing with charm, infinitely better due to improved controls. And DJ Morpheus 2007 still owns the original Croc on PlayStation, along with Starwing on SNES. Loved Croc from minute one. Okay, I'm not quite sure what Starwing has to do with anything, but another 5-star review. So there you go. Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, the remaster, is now finally available after me reporting on it for months and months. $24.99 on GOG.com. Link in the usual places. Go and get it and play it and enjoy it. So, if you'll just indulge me for one moment, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to my sponsor. That's right, PCBWay.com have been sponsoring my main channel, Control-Alt-Reese, for some time now, and they have now also offered to sponsor this podcast, which of course I took them up on because they're a great company to work with. So, thank you for your support. Of course, they're well known in the community for having over 10 years of experience of PCB fabrication, and they also offer additional services, including 3D printing, injection molding, and CNC machining. So if you have any requirement for those services for your next project, please do go and check out the link down in the description to PCBWay.com. And thanks once again for your support, both for my main channel and for the Reese Rambles podcast. So from one much loved 90s game franchise to another, I'm talking about Doom. Of course, I've got my Doom shrine behind me, perhaps my favourite game series of all time. And there is a new one coming out in about 6 weeks' time on the 15th of May, which is coming to the PS5. It's coming to Game Pass, to the Xbox Series, and to the PC, although nothing announced for the Switch. I'm guessing they've kind of well and truly moved on from that by this point. Was Doom 2016 did come out on the Switch, didn't it? I'm not sure if Eternal did. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I have a PC. So yes, and the big news here is obviously, of course, it's a new Doom game and it's coming out in about 6 weeks' time. But the big news this week is that reviewers have actually started to get their hands on it. So here is a video from Eurogamer, and I will, of course, link to this. I'm not going to show the entire thing, and I'm not going to kind of pick apart the entire thing, but I will talk about some of my thoughts and things on this, and there might be some mild spoilers here, although they are things that all of the reviewers are covering, so no kind of major plot points or anything like that. But yeah, so this is Doom, and it's very much a very modern Doom. Of course, the same kind of look and feel as as Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Two absolutely fantastic games, very worthy of the Doom name, in my opinion. And it's looking like this one is a bit of a mixed bag, actually, based on some of the reviews. So, yeah, this new kind of section of the game where you get to fly on the back of a dragon, which sounds very exciting and very grand, but apparently Eurogamer weren't all that enamoured with it. And also part where you get to pilot like a giant mech as well. And I really don't know how that fits in with the whole timeline and this being set in medieval times, but there you go. You can see some footage of this on screen at the moment, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube. And yeah, apparently they weren't all that impressed with that either, which is quite disappointing considering this is coming out in 6 weeks' time. But yeah, obviously core gameplay is still very, very Doom-like, apparently. Some interesting variations on some of the enemies that we know and love, as well as, of course, some kind of earlier proto-versions of those enemies. But I think the biggest difference, and something that was announced very, very early on in kind of the initial reveal trailer of this, is that some of the kind of the weapons, the actual combat mechanics of this. So we've got this new shield thing with this rotating saw blade thing around the outside, and they talk a little bit about how that actually works in the game, and there was some quite interesting stuff that I hadn't considered, which does look like it's quite interesting. I mean, Doom, it's very fast, it's very frantic, it's very kind of bang, 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 bang from, the rhythmic, I guess, from one enemy to another, that kind of thing. And the shield does very much fit into that flow as well, which sounds quite cool. And this new kind of flail weapon as well, this new mace type thing that you can swing around, and it's got like stupidly long range on it, and you can basically smack your enemies over the head from a distance with them, and you can kind of dance between the two and incorporate it into the whole flow of things. And it just looks very modern Doom. I'm very much looking forward to playing this game, but interesting to see, obviously, after the glowing reviews of 2016 and Eternal, quite interesting to see that this one's a bit of a mixed bag based on these kind of early previews that some of the gaming press are starting to get. So I thought that was noteworthy. And of course, the fact that it is now actually out there and starting to be played by people, of course, is very noteworthy for a Doom fan. I don't think it has. I don't think it's put me off the game at all. But yeah, just quite interesting to see. I guess that it's not overwhelmingly positive as the past two games in the series have been. But I'm going to be buying it anyway because it's Doom, and I'm sure I'll give you my thoughts on that nearer the time as I play it, and bug you mercilessly with my thoughts on Doom: The Dark Ages when the time comes. But yeah, do go and watch some of those reviews if you are a Doom fan and they have somehow passed you by. Just quite interesting to see the direction that they've taken the game in and how it kind of varies from the other recent installments in the franchise. And another thing that a few of the reviews that I've seen have pointed out, or the previews that I've seen have pointed out, is the story. How apparently it's very, very heavy on story. which is kind of a new thing as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But there you go. Doom actually getting into the hands of reviewers. Bit of a mixed bag, but generally positive. Looking forward to checking that out on the 15th of May. Another banger of a story now from Technic over on the Discord server. That's right, first time submitter a couple of episodes ago, but Technic has really been on a roll submitting some really interesting stuff and stuff that hadn't otherwise come up on my radar. So thank you ever so much for this one. And hopefully you can keep up the streak next week as well. No pressure at all. And this is to do with one of my favourite game studios, a studio that I've reported on extensively in the whole time that I've been doing these rambles, because not only do they have, not only do they do an excellent job of what they do, but they also seem to have excellent taste in games as well, or at least a taste that's very much aligned with my own. So I'm talking, of course, about Nightdive, and this is an interview with VGC, that prestigious publication in the world of gaming, at videogameschronicle.com, and this is, an interview with the bosses of Nightdive. So the news here is that apparently they have pronounced that they are ready to start tackling Xbox 360 and PS3 era games. Of course, famously they tend to do PC games, so stuff like Quake 1 and 2, Rise of the Triad, Dark Forces. Gotta love Dark Forces, bloody love Dark Forces. Doom 64, obviously that was an N64 game. But and of course, most recently, last week, they announced that they were working on a remaster of System Shock 2 as well, which I'm very much looking forward to because that is a game that passed me by back in the day. So everything that they do is on their proprietary in-house engine called KEX, K-E-X, and of course they are making huge improvements to that with every game that they release, and they apparently now think that it's at the point where it can handle Xbox 360 and PS3 era stuff, which is quite exciting. And I must say, it's probably one of my favourite eras of gaming as well, because it was kind of when they kind of started to dabble with online stuff, but it wasn't. We didn't have all of the rubbish that we associate with kind of online gaming nowadays, all the microtransactions and things like that. Obviously, those consoles did have that. Some of those games did have DLC and that kind of thing, but perhaps not as cynical as it is nowadays. It was kind of the tail end of the proper gaming, I think, when you could buy a disc and you could stick it in your console and you could never put it online and you could play the game single player and have a bloody good time. And perhaps the tail end of a bit of a bygone era of gaming, I think that era of consoles, I think it's fair to say. Is that fair to say? I don't know. I guess it was a kind of a transitionary thing that happened over a period of time. But anyway, enough reminiscing. So yes, in a recent discussion with VGC, Nightdive studio head Stephen Kick and director of business development Larry Cooperman said they were keen to start looking at potential remasters of games that were only released on Xbox 360 or PS3. We stand ready, Cooperman said, when asked how they would handle each game given how many studios from that era have closed down. He then noted there were numerous aspects to take into account. I would begin asking a couple of questions, he explained. Why do I always forget how to read when I'm doing these things? That's me talking, not him. Was it Xbox 360 exclusive, or was there a PC version out too? Because that also changes things, the little preservation that's available. Do we have source code? If so, what's the quality of the source code? How about the assets? Those are the kinds of considerations that we have there. That being said, there were some really good games that came out in that era that shouldn't be lost. To your point, though, with a game like Haze, let's say, hypothetically we had access to that, and that was our big title for 2028, right? We would go to the original designers and we would say it didn't do as well as you had hoped. I'm sure you've had a lot of time to ruminate and to think about what you would have done differently. Now, of course, Haze, I was in the Xbox 360 camp back in the day, and I will say, if you want recommendations for games to remaster, please do Crackdown. I loved Crackdown on the Xbox 360. Bloody excellent game. Or I mean, I know it's not a shooter, but like the early Burnout games. Yeah, if you want recommendations, you come to me. But Haze, yeah, I mean that was kind of Sony's big rival to Halo at the time, wasn't it? Looked very similar, had a very similar name, was marketed in a very similar way, but I'd be quite interested in playing that as someone who was a big fan of the Halo franchise, and I guess still is, but didn't get an opportunity to play Haze back in the day. Be interesting to see kind of their take on that formula. And on my PC without having to go out and buy a PS3 to play that, for example. So that's quite an interesting suggestion. I do like that. We've had this going back to the interview, we've had these discussions before with the original developers on some of these games, and we've given them an opportunity to come back and say, this is what I would have done. In the case of System Shock 2 Remastered and a lot of these other games that we've been looking at, as soon as you bring them over, import them onto newer hardware, some of the problems start to clear themselves up, like frame rate, refresh rate, texture resolution, streaming, and load times. And then he goes on to talk about the PS3, and of course it's quite interesting architecture, the cell architecture at the time, which did cause developers problems, but eventually they kind of got to grips with it and all of that. Basically says that it's not a problem, they can handle that, which is all very good. So I'm not going to go through and basically read the entire interview to you. This is linked in the usual places if you do want to go and read it. But that's kind of the bulk of the story. That's the thrust of it. Nightdive have expressed an interest in remastering some Xbox 360 and PS3 era games. They've specifically mentioned Haze, which I think sounds quite interesting. And yeah, thank you ever so much for the submission, Technic. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this, and hopefully this might lead to something interesting. If you're a regular Rambler, you will not be surprised to hear that I am a huge fan of the Sega Dreamcast, Sega's fantastic console from 1999. In fact, their last ever proper console, I think it's fair to say. I have my original Dreamcast here on proud display as part of my studio backdrop. And if you're thinking that everything I have on my studio backdrop here is some kind of, does hold some kind of historical relevance or importance to me, a lot of it does. A lot of it's just stuff that I had lying around and didn't really have anywhere else to put. But that's not the story, of course. No, I like to keep up with modern-day Dreamcast homebrew in particular, see what's going on in that scene, even if I don't really have the time to actually check it out myself. And that is something that I do report on in these rambles. And in particular, the work of a incredibly talented member of the community known as Falco Gurgis. Not sure if that's his real name. If it is, that is a fantastic name, Falco. I guess the credit should probably go to Falco's parents. But anyway, Falco has been working on a port of GTA 3 to the Sega Dreamcast, which I have reported on extensively. And yeah, it's the most recent news as far as that was concerned was that there had been some really impressive optimizations as far as the graphics and the performance were concerned. Audio working, music working, all that kind of stuff. Still in beta, still some work to do on that. Not kind of fully polished and fully kind of commercial release quality, but there's no doubt in anyone's mind that he is going to make it to that point at some point. But a month ago, he announced that he was also working on a port of Vice City due to popular demand. Now, GTA 3 was a pretty incredible, I mean, they're all great games, but GTA 3 was kind of the first stepping stone, the first kind of foray into 3D for the GTA franchise. And yeah, I will say, if you're not old like I am, the first two GTA games were top-down 2D games, and you should check them out because they're a lot of fun. But yeah, I know it's kind of known predominantly as this kind of third-person 3D game, but yeah, Vice City, I think, is where it really hit its stride. You've got that awesome 80s theme, that awesome soundtrack, of course, and a much more complex game than GTA 3 as well. So I think it was quite surprising that, Falco thought that it would be possible to get it working on the Dreamcast, let alone at any kind of level of quality. But very pleased to report that as of this week, in fact, as of April Fool's Day, and this is not an April Fool's thing, he did go to great lengths to point this out after people were asking questions about that. It is now in beta, and you can actually go and download it, and you can play it yourself. So, yeah, this has been reported by TimeExtension.com. The headline, GTA Vice City has been ported to Sega Dreamcast. And yeah, this is an update as of Wednesday, the 2nd of April. So the beta release of our Grand Theft Auto Vice City port to the Sega Dreamcast is finally here, says Falco Gurgis. We've now added graphic settings for 2x FSAA, FSAA, whatever that is, full screen anti-aliasing. I'm not a graphics guy, to give it a less jagged, more smooth look, and have added a video mode for rendering to a 24 bpp frame buffer, bits per pixel. I'm not up on all the latest jargon, which adds extra depth and vividness to the colours. Bear in mind, the stuff that I tend to deal with has like, Z80 or 6502 CPUs, but anyway, he adds that there's still a lot to do. While we still have plenty of work to do regarding features, assets and performance, I am extremely proud of our team after what we've accomplished within just a few short months with this port that for the last 2 decades was considered literally impossible for the console to handle. It has been an absolute honour and privilege to work beside you crazy and talented people. I also want to thank the Sega Dreamcast and Grand Theft Auto communities for rallying around this cause and coming together to help us test and debug this release, along with the previous GTA 3 release over the last several months. Your support and diligent work has been vital for ensuring that the games have been fully playable on the Dreamcast, and your constant support and feedback has been an inspiration to the team. We couldn't have done it without you. So yeah, very much a community effort here, and nice to see that being acknowledged. And if we go over to Twitter, there is actually a video of this, an actual proper capture from real hardware. And it looks like it's running quite nicely, actually, based on what I can see. Quite smoothly. Of course, it's not 100% there. Some of the lighting, some of the textures are perhaps a little bit off. But, I mean, we've got some pop in here. But, yeah, you can actually go over to GitLab and you can download the files for this, provided you have access to the original assets, so you can rip those from your original copy of the game, and you can build your own playable Dreamcast version of GTA Vice City, which is now officially in beta. And yeah, that's alongside Falco's port of GTA 3. Still very much ongoing, still very much a community effort, and yeah, all heading in a very good direction indeed. I'm going to have to do like a Dreamcast HDMI mod video or something at some point. Funny, I should mention that actually, based on what I've got here on the desk next to me. But yeah, I need to do like a Dreamcast HDMI mod video or something at some point, so I have an excuse to check out these games because these are looking absolutely brilliant. So yeah, there's the GitLab page. I believe GTA 3 was available on GitHub. Not quite sure what the story is there and why he's chosen to use a different platform. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps it's mirrored on both. But yeah, this is part of the whole DCA 3 port of GTA 3. It's all kind of been merged into one, and of course it is using RE3 as a base, which is a kind of a modern kind of homebrew development platform for the Dreamcast, and it's fully reverse engineered from the source code for the original games. So very, very cool indeed. Oh, and Callisto OS as well. That's the other kind of platform that it runs on. So there we go. That will be linked in the usual places if you want to go and build that and check it out. And please do let me know, because I'd like to know people's experiences with this, as I haven't had a chance to check it out myself, and realistically probably won't for a while. What do you reckon? Do you have a Dreamcast? Do you want to go and build this and check it out for me and do all my job for me? Maybe post me the disc, capture all the video footage. I mean, you could. And that, my dear Rambler, brings us around to my regular Video of the Week feature, wherein I talk about a video that I've seen on YouTube in the previous week that has educated or entertained or informed or otherwise improved my life in some small way. Quite often they are related to retro gaming and retro technology and all that lovely stuff, and often they aren't. But in this case, this one very much is, and it's also to do with one of my favourite games of all time, or my favourite game series of all time, if you can count two games as a series. But first, rather than going straight to the video, I want to take you to the Wikipedia page so we can learn a little bit about some history. Now, this is something that I was familiar with, but haven't read about in a very, very long time, and it was very cool to have my memory refreshed. So this is a game called Narbacular Drop. Do you know that name? You probably know the game that it turned into. So Portal from Valve and Portal 2 started off as a student project called Narbacular Drop, and as explained here on Wikipedia, it was a 2005 puzzle platform game developed by Nuclear Monkey Software. It was the senior game project of students attending the DigiPen Institute of Technology. And the gameplay consists of navigating a dungeon using an innovative portal system. The player controls two interconnected portals that can be placed on any non-metallic surface. And Gabe Newell, the managing director of Valve, took interest in the team's work and employed the whole staff at Valve. The developers went on to develop the critically acclaimed Portal using many of the same concepts. The word narbacular, which does not exist in any dictionary, was chosen primarily to aid in internet search engine results. And you can actually go and download this game and play it, which you really should. I mean, obviously, it doesn't kind of really work properly on modern hardware, but if you've got something from around kind of 2005-ish, and you want to check this game out, bear in mind it is a student project, so it's very rough around the edges. But yeah, the developers that made this went on to make Portal and Portal 2. I mean, how impressive is that? In 2 short years as well, according to Wikipedia. But what does this have to do with the video of the week? Well, when I saw this come up in my recommendations today, I had to drop everything and watch it. This 20-minute video. It's called I Backported Portal 2 to Portal's Prototype, and it's on a YouTube channel that I wasn't familiar with called Portal Runner. Although he's evidently doing very well for himself because he has 42,000 subscribers, around the same as me, actually. This isn't my main channel. And yeah, I think what this channel kind of primarily does is videos about Portal, about the kind of how the levels are constructed and speed running and the history of Portal and playing Portal and all to do with Portal lore. So it's a channel that I do need to dig into a bit more deeply because I think I'm very much going to enjoy it. I love the way this video was put together and the way that it was presented and the the editing and the voiceover and everything. It was really educational and really interesting. But essentially, what Portal Runner has done here is take the original Narbacular Drop game and attempted to backport some of the levels, some of the test chambers from Portal 2 back into the original game. And you soon discover in this video that actually it's incredibly restrictive, the kind of the original game engine. Without it's basically impossible to sort of extend it or add any kind of new functionality whatsoever. So what he's had to do is get really creative and kind of reuse some of the bits and pieces of Narbacular Drop and try to kind of shoehorn them into doing things that they weren't designed to do to make these Portal 2 levels actually work properly within that game engine. And what the end result of this, and it's not really a spoiler to say that, some quite impressive results. He actually writes some tools to convert some of the original test chambers and textures and stuff like that from Portal 2 back to Narbacular Drop. And you also get to learn a little bit about about Narbacular Drop as well, about how it works and how it was built and how some of those concepts kind of got carried through into the Portal series as well. So, yeah, you get to learn a bit of history as well, kind of as a side effect of seeing how this project is put together and how it all unfolds. So, really interesting video, this, of course. I wouldn't be recommending it if it wasn't, but very much my bag. Yeah, as you probably know if you're a regular viewer of Control-Alt-Reese, my main channel, Portal is a game that I have featured a fair few times over the years just for testing stuff and stuff like that. It's a game that I have a lot of love for, so always good to see this. One thing I couldn't quite understand is why he decided to go with Portal 2 rather than the original Portal. Obviously, the original Portal was kind of a simpler game and probably would have been easier. But I'm not familiar with Portal Runner's work. Like I say, it's a channel I still need to go and check out. So perhaps that's something I'll learn as I explore the channel. Anyway, there it is. It's 20 minutes and 39 seconds long. Like I say, you'll learn a little bit about game development, a little bit about the history of the Portal series and about Narbacular Drop. It's kind of a student project forerunner and just a really well-made and very entertaining and educational video. So that's it. That's my video of the week, and that will be linked in the usual places, as always. And that's all I have for you for this week's Ramble, so thank you ever so much for joining me. And if you'd like to submit your own story to Reese Rambles, please do feel free to come and join my Discord server. There is a link down in the description to join that, or if I forget to put it down in the description for whatever reason, again, there's a link to that on my website on controlaltreese.com, or you can just search for it. Apparently some people just happen across it and join, and they're all more than welcome. In fact, there is a fantastic community over there. It's not just about Reese Rambles. We chat about all sorts of stuff all day, every day, including gardening and whatever else. So more than welcome to come and join us if you like. No main channel release on Control-Alt-Reese this week. I am working on a hardware project for that, which involves lots of moving pieces and lots of filming various bits and pieces. You've probably worked it out based on the detritus on the desk around me if you are watching this on YouTube. So look forward to that one in the very near future. It's just not quite ready in time for this ramble. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for you for this week. So thanks once again. Of course, these go out at 2 minutes to midnight on a Friday night UK time on YouTube and all of the podcast platforms. So I will see you same time and same place next week. Bye.